Welcome back to the Travsessed podcast. We're your hosts, Kim and Aaron. We are healthcare travelers and the creators of Travsessed. Travsessed is a brand that has resources for healthcare travelers on the clock and off the clock with our online courses, podcasts, and adventure trips.
Woo! Nailed it.
Flight crew, please prepare for departure.
Okay, so we are sitting in our hotel room. The noises are going by, the sounds of Cusco. We're sitting here sipping coca tea and out of breath just from the intro.
It's so funny. It's like, I was literally thinking that because we're in Cusco. It's over 1,100 feet and out.
11,000?
Oh yeah, 11,000 feet in elevation. And so it's harder to breathe. You move slower. It's just, it takes some time to get used to it. And so this whole time I'm like, don't get into your, like, it's all about your mindset. Like, you're fine. You're breathing fine. You're good, which is really important because you also don't want to like feed into it and then you like make yourself feel like shit.
Totally.
But we just walked up the stairs, sat down. I have my coca tea. We're talking and I'm literally like, oh my gosh, like trying to catch my breath.
And it's not like a bad, like, I don't feel that like I can't breathe. It's a matter of just like what you normally take for granted of like, I should not be winded sitting, walking upstairs and sitting in a chair and talking. And it's like, it's a little bit harder.
Yeah.
It's not like, it's like, oh my God, I'm struggling.
No, you move slower. It takes a little bit more intention to take deeper breaths. And you definitely get short of breath way quicker doing very easy tasks that you can do at home that like you don't even think about.
Yeah.
It's just part of it. But it takes a couple of days, your body acclimatizes, and then I feel like it starts to feel normal again.
Totally. So, Boudreaux, why are we in Peru?
Are we doing this now?
Huh?
We're doing this?
Doing what?
Oh, I thought we were doing this one. The
What's
live.
that?
The quick fire.
No!
I thought we were doing the
No,
quick
this
fire.
is the full bore.
Oh, I had no idea. I thought we were doing our 15-minute quick fire. I was like all prepared for that.
No, that's next. I was wondering. I was like reading that paper and I'm like, that has nothing to do with anything we're going to talk about.
Oh, okay. Well, now I have to completely switch gears in my brain.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
Okay. So, switch. Okay. So, we're in Cusco right now. We are waiting for our first group to arrive. They'll arrive in a couple of days. And so Aaron and I always come in early and just make sure like everything, all the reservations are good. All the guides are good. Like everything, all the I's are dotted and the T's are crossed and everything is good to go. So that when the group arrives, it's smooth, it's easy, and we can just have fun.
Totally. And
so we're like running around like chickens with our head cut off right now, just making sure everything's good.
And it's nuts because we had it pretty much obviously all set up, but there was a couple like really local experiences that Kim and I are going to do. And they didn't have good wire transfer, abilities. And so those got lost in the shuffle. And so then we had to go and pay in person. And then it was just a lot. And so we were like trying to figure all that out, but we got it all done yesterday.
Well, so they don't speak any English. So it's like...
A couple of them did.
Yesterday?
Yeah.
Very
well. She had to call a guy who's going to be our translator.
Yeah.
And then...
Well, so for the food tour we're doing, she is the sweetest. They call her Mama Celadona. And
it's not a food tour, it's a cooking class.
Oh, sorry, a cooking class. She is like the sweetest little angel, and she is going to do an awesome cooking class with us, but she speaks no English. So the reason I went with her is because I felt like it was going to be a really authentic experience. And also her restaurant that she has, they give back to the community. So she supports mothers in Cusco that are interested in working and they have a passion for cooking or food, but they don't have anyone to watch their kids, so they have to stay home. So she helps raise money for them to have childcare so that they can get out of the house and go and work.
Learn a skill.
I just thought that was so cool. But anyways, yeah. So we were like trying to communicate with her, no English. We're using the Google Translate. Now we have to pay for the cooking class. And they keep charging our card over and over. And we're like, wait, what's going, like different amounts,
he was breaking it up into 3 different amounts and then ended up being 4 different amounts. And then he realized that he was doing it in soles and not USD. So then I'm trying to do the math and then it's coming out more than what they quoted us. And like, we're trying to like talk about the exchange rate and where I'm getting the information and where they're getting the information. Yeah. And I mean, it was like, oh my God.
It's just funny. It's all part of the experience that we were like, oh, we'll just pop in, we'll pay our invoice, we'll get on our merry way, go have supper. We were literally there for like over an hour. We left, our heads were both exploding, trying to like communicate and figure it out. But they were so kind and lovely, and it's going to be an amazing experience. Totally. But we were just like, oh my God, like. Yeah. Hopefully that was ended up.
Oh, it's perfect.
Okay. All right.
Everybody's good. It ended up being, and it's like you said, it's going to be an amazing. She was showing Kim like pictures of her cooking class and people like dancing around and having wine and beer and it just looks like a lot of fun. So I'm excited. I do want to talk about real quick because we had talked about it before, but I do want to throw this in here. When Kim and I were leaving Lima and heading to Cusco, we got into a cab, and for some reason, I don't know, it just triggered a memory of the first time Kim and I ever went completely international, and we went to Thailand, Bali, Philippines, Kuala Lumpur, like basically like a tour of Southeast Asia. And I remember just feeling so nervous and so scared of like
everything,
right? Like, I mean, when you've never traveled, you don't know what to expect, and all you hear is stories and things on TV, and you always hear the bad stuff. Like, all the good stuff is like, oh yeah, I went there, it was absolutely fantastic, it's one of my favorite places. But the bad stories are so much detail, you know? So like, unfortunately, we get conditioned to that. And I just remember the only thing we had ever done was a European cruise, and I never wanted to get off the boat because I thought we were going to get scammed.
Oh my God.
And then just coming to Southeast Asia on the ground and navigating it on the ground, it turned out to be one of my favorite experiences ever. But I was just looking back at 7 years ago, those people, to the people that got in the cab yesterday to go to the airport, and like the growth. And there's one particular story that we'll tell, but I wanted you to talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, it's like anything, right? Like we have our travel legs now. You know, it takes time to become more confident. And we were in a completely different part of the world. We were nervous. We didn't know what to expect. We were like so scared of everything. And to now just being like, we'll figure it out. Like, it's not that big of a deal. We have way more confidence going into situations. Even if we're not familiar, we're still like, oh, like we have the tools, we can figure this out. It's not that, crazy. And we also, I think the more places you go, the more people you meet, you realize that majority of people are kind and helpful and want to be there to help you. And it's such a small percentage that are going to try to take advantage. And so, being more trusting of people, obviously keeping your wits about you and being smart about things, but definitely more trusting of just like people are kind, and when we were first in Thailand, oh my God.
Well, I was just going to say, to go from those people who were so scared to now like thinking about, we were walking around Cusco planning group travel. We've planned group travel. We've set up everything. We're paying high dollar amounts for things in places we've never been before, talking to people that don't speak our language. And it just was a reflection of like, wow, like you said, you get your travel legs. And I think you do that in any walk of life, right? Like anything you're doing, the more you do, the better you are. And those things can feel super scary, and they can be huge things, but it is like one foot in front of the other. You figure it out. And now it's just like, that stuff's fun.
It becomes your normal, right? Even with, healthcare traveling, right? It's like when you're first starting, you're like, oh my gosh, like, how do I navigate this? What do I say?
Get taken advantage of.
Am I going to get taken advantage of? Yep. My recruiter going to pay me the most? And then you get out there and you're like, I'm nervous to walk in on my first day. And what is it going to be like? And how am I going to find housing? And everything seems a little bit more over the top and a little bit more dramatic, and there's more nerves. But then you do it over and over again. You're like, oh, I can figure this out because it's more familiar. And you're like, even when you're in situations that you're not completely comfortable with, you've built the tools and the wits and the confidence to be like, oh, now I can figure this out with more ease than that initial kind of like panic.
Yeah.
In the beginning. And I think that's like really cool to know, like, just anything you do, you're always going to get better and better and better at.
Yeah. So
Well, I was going to say, even just coming here, again, like this is our second time in Cusco.
Yeah.
Or the second time we plan a Travsessed adventure trip in Peru. And, you know, it's crazy to think that 1 year ago that we created and planned and organized our very first adventure trip, right? Here in Peru. And we were nervous and we were excited, but we didn't really know what to expect. We didn't really know, are we going to enjoy group travel? Are we going to like being the leaders of a group? We're so used to us just being on our own and traveling. And what is this really going to be like? Can we do this? You know, we're quote unquote kind of in charge of a group of people. And what is that going to be like? We had never been to Peru before. So we didn't even know what to expect there. Like, oh my gosh, like it's going to be crazy. And so that trip set the tone for, like, we loved it, right? Like, we love that experience.
Didn't come without its growing pains.
Definitely did not come without its growing pains. But to be back a year later and, like, you know, the driver who picked us up last year, Sergio, he picked us up this year from the airport. We're like, hey, Sergio, what's up? How are you, right? Coming back to this hotel with...
Well, not only that, when we were at the airport, I called the hotel we're staying at because I didn't see Sergio. And so I got one of the girls on the phone and she was like, is this Aaron?
Yeah.
And she like recognized my voice. And it was like just so cool to be like, wow, like a year ago, you had no clue who we were.
Right.
And now we've built these relationships, not to mention Jesus and Alpaca and...
Yeah, and our tour guides. And like we're going to dinner tonight with our food tour guide that we met last year. Like we have like a community here now. And it's last year we were so nervous. And this year we come back and we're like, damn, it almost like we landed in Cusco. And I'm like, it almost feels like at home. Like we know the city really well. And we have like a group of people here that we know. And it's like, it feels really good, you know? And it's like, we've built these relationships up. And I think like that's really cool.
Totally.
And the last thing I wanted to say, and then we can tell the funny story and just kind of get into that stuff. But the other thing is the group travel, right? That was something that we just really didn't know how we were going to feel. And I think some people, they don't know. Are they group travel people? Are they not? You know? And we always just thought we liked to travel solo. And so doing that trip last year really showed us, and even like in Patagonia, it was like, wow, like those were awesome trips. Hiking the Inca Trail, hiking the W Trek, all the cool things that we did on those trips, Aaron and I could have just done. It's like, that was a fucking awesome trip. But it was the people that we got to experience it with that really, really made it stand out. And now I feel like I love group travel. I think it really, I'll always like to travel with just you two. But I feel like when you're traveling with like-minded people, it really elevates the experience because it's the memories of the people and the laughs and the stories and the crazy things you guys did and what you talked about. Those are the things that really stand out.
Yeah, totally. And I think every time, like, even though there's ups and downs or there may be like difficult moments or certain times where we don't feel our best or whatever it is, every time we looked at like the highlights of the trip, it wasn't always necessarily like what we were looking at or the excursion we were on. It was the people that created that excursion, which made it that much better.
100%.
Right? So it's like the ice hiking on the glacier was like amazing, but it was like the people and the stories and Patsy falling and like doing, you know what I'm saying? Like those little things that like added to the experience.
Yeah.
You're like, wow, like that was so cool.
I think there's a couple of things because like, it's got to be small group travel. Like when we pulled into Cusco, when we landed in Cusco, they had gate 1 travel. This guy like with a flag, there was like 1 million people. They were getting on this massive bus. God only knows what they were doing, just going to all the touristy things that's like so lame and so boring, and you're with 1 million different people and it's like, ooh, like that kind of group travel is like absolutely not. Zero desire to do that. But when you're doing it, I think the way that you and I do it and the way that we plan our trips is, you know, this will be our last group. This Peru group is the last group that will be 14 people. Moving forward, it will only be 10. And that intimacy and that small group mentality, I think that is where those real connections come in. And you really get to know each other. And like, that's where those memories and experiences go to a whole nother level, because you're like, you walk away like, damn, like those people feel like family now. And you don't really know how that's possible when you don't know people, and then you come together and you're with each other for 10 days or something, and you walk away and you're like, they feel like family. It's like, how is that even possible? But it is.
No, totally. And I think too, what I've realized, and I'm interested in your thoughts, like I see it now with helping as much as I've helped on these trips planning, right? Like you always did a lot of the planning. And so now that I've been on the ground with that, I've noticed that the things that you and I really value in travel and the things that we want to bring to our groups, we're able to do with smaller groups, because the bigger groups, you have to go to all the major touristy places because they can withstand that type of environment, right? You got to go to the most touristy restaurants. You got to go to the most touristy spots because you need massive bus parking and you need bigger vehicle parking and you need to be able to handle that many people. Whereas like a group of 10, even 14 is pushing it, but we've been able to do it to where like even this group in Peru, we went for the pisco tasting and ceviche making class. We have like this little quaint little bar area and it's just us. And they don't have to shut down the whole restaurant. We're not like causing like a huge issue. It's just like we have this private room that we get to go and have this experience as a group.
Yeah.
And so you still get to do those fun things. Even Celadona, the lady, she has a max of 16 people, and she's even pushing that.
Yeah.
For us, it's supposed to be 12, right?
Yeah.
So Bali, the same way. Like we couldn't have done half the things we're able to do with a bigger group like that.
That's so true. Yeah, you really, that is the truth. Like you just really can't experience more of the off the beaten path things as a huge group. And I think like one of the memories that really stands out to me is the first time you and I ever did any sort of group travel. Because again, we were never into groups things ever. When we went to Tanzania and we volunteered to build the first ever IR department, which was such a cool experience. But we were there with a small team. So there was 6 of us total.
Me, you, Jason, Holly, and Nadia. So 5.
5. Okay, so 5 people. So very, very small. And we all shared a condo together, and we were working, right? So we were working, but we also went on a safari and we went to Zanzibar and we did different things together. And I wasn't sure even going into that trip. I'm like, we're living with other people. We go like, what is this really going to be like? I don't know. And we left that trip literally buckets of tears. And it was, yes, Tanzania was amazing. Yes, the project we were working on was incredible. And the people and Zanzibar, all of it was so cool. The safari was next level. We could have had, that would have been amazing if it would have just been Aaron and I. Yeah. But the experiences we had with those people that we left, and I was like, wow, like I truly love them. I had such, like they elevated the entire experience. And that was the first time for me that I was like, wow, that's an interest. I never would have thought other people would elevate our own travel experience, because you and I always just have fun together and we do our own thing. But that really changed it for me too. I was like,
totally.
That was awesome.
As opposed to Rome, when we were like being bussed around for 14 hours with like an entire busload of people, and like they're like, go see the Vatican and then go here, and then we have 3 hours for souvenir shopping. We're like, no, like.
So that was when we did the cruise that you talked about, and the only way we left the boat is that we would do like excursions through the cruise, which are always more expensive, and they're all like the touristy things, but it doesn't matter. We were tourists and we wanted to go see all the touristy things at that time. But yeah, we're getting off the boat with, 100 other people from the boat being bussed around on these huge buses, going in, like being herded in, yeah. And like going to these restaurants that aren't super yummy and local. It's like only where they can fit 100 people. Mm-hmm. So yeah, that also is like, damn, like I don't like this. This is not how I want to travel. But you put me on like a small bus with 10 people who I click with and who we all connect and have fun with, and we go have these like cool
local experiences.
Like that to me is the ticket. And I think we've really found that in our trips.
Totally.
And so I just think that's really interesting to think about, of whether you are a group traveler or not. And if you're not, really considering having an experience with a very small group of people, and seeing what you think about it, because I think it's a really cool way to travel. And you also get a built-in support.
Yeah.
Right? So like we all are there, we're supporting each other. If somebody needs something, if you're like trying to figure out where do I go, what do I do? Like you do have this built-in support system and family and team as opposed to just doing everything on your own. I don't know. There's something really cool
No,
about
I agree.
it.
I agree. And I think too, it's funny because now, like after that, like getting into that hilarious story that basically triggered this whole thing.
So circling back to how far we've come as
Yeah,
travelers.
and so it was hilarious because we had actually been to Bali for a couple months. And then we flew into Bangkok and we did all of the Bangkok things. We did get scammed that one time, but it was like the best day ever. We rode around in a tuk-tuk all day and saw the fake statues, you know, the fake things or whatever. Remember, it was like not real. And then we went and saw all the suits.
So let me put
holiday.
some context behind this. So basically in Bangkok, there's these beautiful temples. Yeah, you can go to. There, you know, everyone goes to see these temples. So Aaron and I were like, cool, like let's go like explore. And we didn't really know. We didn't even really have a plan. We were just going. I had written some stuff down. And a guy in a tuk-tuk like flags us down. A tuk-tuk's like a little transportation thing that they have. And he was like, hey, like, where are you guys going? And I think we were going to one of the temples. He's like, oh, it's closed today. But if you guys get in for however much baht it was, I'll take you to all the best temples. Like, you'll get to see all this. We'll go to lunch.
Did you get a river cruise?
Yeah, a river cruise, like all this. And it was
See
like
the floating markets?
it was like equivalent of like $5.
Not even.
Yeah. And we were like, what? Like, best day ever.
Well, then Kim goes, all right, we'll think about this as long as you take us to the most authentic lunch place. And
Yeah.
he was like, okay.
Yeah.
And so we're like, all right, well, let's get in.
So we get in, and he took us to so many different temples. None of them that were on our list, and also none of the ones that he said were closed were closed. But we drove around Bangkok in this tuk-tuk. That was so fun. And we didn't know, like, we were seeing cool temples, and like we were like, cool, I don't know, I don't care. But then on the last temple, there was a guy, and he's like, oh my gosh, like, you guys are here on the best day ever. It's tax-free day. Like, this never happens. Like, you guys have to go and do this and this and this. And we were like, what? We're so lucky. Like, we're so weird.
I don't know, it still felt a little weird.
Well, but we were like, it's so cool. Like, we're here on like the coolest day of the year. So then they took us to their suit factory.
Yep.
And then tried to sell us a bunch of
Yeah,
suits.
and we're like walking in and they're like standing in suits and like they'll make us a custom made one and all this kind of stuff. And because it's no tax day, just all this crazy stuff. But our tuk-tuk driver was actually like a lot of fun and he was really cool and spoke great English. And so it was like, it was cool to do, but
I do think he took us to a cool, authentic place. I mean, the
He
food
did.
was good, and we were like the only white people in there. So
yeah, no,
you
and it
know.
was off the beaten path. It wasn't
Yeah.
like in the main area. And so that was definitely cool. But I remember the next morning,
Oh wait, what about the river cruise?
oh yeah, and then we went on the river cruise and we were
But it
just
really
on.
wasn't.
No, we went in like, I mean, it was a cool way to see Bangkok.
It was private.
It was completely private, and the floating market was just a dude in a canoe, like coming by us asking if we
Like
wanted
lemonade.
like lemonade and creamsicle pops and
Yeah.
like things like that. But
That's $5, honestly.
it wasn't the true floating market. Like if you
No.
watch Somebody Feed Phil, that's the floating market.
So it was the most. We got to see all the Bobo versions
Yeah.
of what people go to see. We did not know that at the time, which is why, quote unquote, scam. But thinking back, I'm like, that was $5 that we just drove all over Bangkok and like went to these off the beaten path places. Like, what a cool day.
No, I know. And like Kim released birds out of a cage because she set them free, but then we saw them fly right back into the cage.
That's so mean. I don't
Right.
even remember doing that.
You wanted to set them free, and so it was like one bot to set them free, and it was like a religious experience, is what the guy said. Again, total scam. But then, like, we walked away, we walked around the corner, and I saw the bird fly back into the cage.
That is, I'm beyond upset.
Yeah. So then,
What a scam. I forgot about
the next
that.
day. We were walking around. I think it was the night after Khao San Road. We went and met. God, what is it?
Our friends, Amy,
Amy and, oh my gosh.
Jakey boy.
I totally forgot their names, but it was actually like a really fun night. And so we woke up a little hungover, and I was doing the research of like some of the temples that guy took us to because I was like, I've never heard of these. And literally, it was exactly the list. You get approached by a tuk-tuk driver, they negotiate the price down, they take you to this temple, this temple, this temple. It's tax-free day. Then you go to the suits, and it was like this whole thing. And I was like, oh my God.
That was us.
We followed this exact like template, and it was like number one scam in Bangkok.
Best day
But
ever.
Kim and I were like, we got scammed for like $2. Like, who cares?
Yeah, it was fun.
So anyway, that leads to we wrap up our time in Bangkok. We're heading to Chiang Mai.
Hold on, I think it was the next day. So we had gone out. So Khao San Road is like the big party area in Bangkok, and that's where we met our friends that night because they were American too, and we just kind of synced up at this comedy show, and then we ended up going out and having this wild night. Which Khao San Road is like you were drinking buckets of alcohol, you were sucking in gas.
No, we weren't.
Well, we weren't, but that's what people do.
There's like laughing gas. It's a backpacker hookup, drug, alcohol, clubs,
It's
comedy
crazy.
shows. I mean, it's just everything. Food, massages on the street, like pedicures, whatever you want. Like the fish sucking thing on your feet.
Which
like,
we did.
It's just like overload.
Yeah. So we get wasted. So the next day, we were leaving Bangkok to fly to Chiang Mai. So we packed up all of our stuff.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm like, I like really want a Starbucks. I'm wearing like elephant pants, flip-flops, like
A white unicorn shirt.
it was gray.
It was
but
gray
I love
unicorn.
That unicorn shirt.
Here's the thing. We did not have transportation set up, so we asked the hotel if they could get us a cab. Now, I had read, again, Google can be a problem, that if you put your luggage in the cab and then you get out of the cab driver will drive away, and there goes all of your stuff. And so I get in the cab. Kim's like, I want a Starbucks. Do we have time? She runs in. It's raining at this point. So he's sitting out on the street, and there's these stairs that lead down. It was almost very Cinderella-y of like Kim coming down the stairs into the cab. And so we're in this like bright pink cab, and she's coming down. It's raining, so she's trying to hurry. She's holding 2 Starbucks. She hits the first flight of stairs, and literally her feet go above her head, and she's just parallel to the ground, still holding the 2 Starbucks so they don't spill. And slams down into the ground in the rain. Her gray shirt is like all like wet and dirty. She's still holding the Starbucks. And I remember
the coffee spilled all over me.
Oh, of course.
Yeah.
But you still had some left.
No. The coffee literally
that's right.
exploded all over my entire being.
That's true. Okay, I do remember that.
I was just laying there in the ground, in the rain, with coffee all over me, like screaming, and like Aaron refused to get out of the cab. He literally was like signing from the cab, like, "Are you okay?" Like he wouldn't even get out to help me because he was too scared the guy was gonna take off.
So, I told that first. I probably should have saved that to the end, but I remember just feeling this like helpless feeling. Like, I want to go help and see if she's okay, but like, I can't get out of this cab because we got to get to the airport and like, we need our stuff. And so hopefully she just pops right back up and like...
I was like, what a dick. I'm like laying here, like my back's broken. My coffee's everywhere, and Aaron's just like still in the cab, just like looking at me like, you good, right?
I remember rolling down the window, but I couldn't even do that.
You were so scared. But it's like so funny because turns out like our cab driver was amazing. He wasn't running off with our stuff. The fact that you were too scared to get out of the car to like help me, like it's crazy. And honestly, yes, he could have ran off with our stuff, but at the end of the day,
and obviously, like I said, it's like now that story just triggered, and we're like, wow, like I would have literally just not even cared. It's like, who cares about the stuff, right? Number one.
What about me?
Number 2, like he's not riding off with our stuff. Like he was perfectly fine. We had just had a long conversation, and I know in hindsight it's easy to say, right? But I mean, on top of that, now that Kim's got coffee all over her, we don't even have our morning coffee, and we're a little bit running behind. We didn't realize that there was 2 airports in Bangkok.
Yeah, so I got up some cool, got back in the car, was a little shaken up, and actually I was just more pissed, I didn't have a coffee. And we're like, we gotta go, man. We're gonna like miss our flight. So we like go to the airport, realize we're at the wrong airport. And our driver was like, it's okay, I'll get you to the other one, and like takes off.
On top of that, he said, are you sure that it's this airport? Because this is not the airport that flies to Chiang Mai. And we were like, there's another airport?
Yeah, we had no clue.
And he literally pulls a U-turn on the highway and he's like, don't worry, I got you.
Yeah.
And we freaking made it with enough time to get another coffee.
I know, which is insane. And Bangkok is huge and there's so much traffic. Like how he managed to get us to the other airport with still time for the coffee. Like that was such a crazy day. And it's just looking back again of like how far we've come of just these things that you were once kind of scared of now you're like, no, it's just kind of part of the experience. You figure it out. You get out there, like, you know what I mean? And what's the worst case scenario? If somebody does drive off with your stuff, well, damn, that sucks, but that can happen anywhere.
I also just look at it as like, thank God nothing happened, but you slip and fall. And like, what if somebody on the street ran up and like took your purse off of you? I would have still been so petrified to get out of the car. I would have been like, get him, babe.
You would have told the taxi driver to like go.
Go. We'll come back for her.
We're so go back. So messed up. I'm so sad.
I know, and that's just crazy because that's not me as a person, right?
No, not at all.
But it's like, that's what's so funny when you really look back at your mindset and where you're at and why mindset is so important, and also learning and just, you know, just like letting those fears get in the way of like who you truly are.
Yeah. Where's another story?
Oh my God, there's so many. But I'm not going to sit here silent for 10 minutes while you figure it out.
Okay, you guys go grab a drink while we sit here and
we'll
think.
be back.
No, I don't know. I can't think of any.
There's plenty.
Yeah, I think that's the fun of it. And traveling is fun because it is wild, it's different, and it's unknown. And
oh, I was just going to say,
okay.
Just the fact that like just recently with Patagonia that we told on the podcast about how they literally were like, oh, this isn't a direct flight anymore. We're landing in a random place. And
my God.
Oh, guess what? The crew has reached their limit of flight time. So now you don't have a flight. Like,
yeah.
So it's like those times we would have lost our minds early, but we were just like, oh,
Whatever,
well, we'll figure it out. Yeah.
You always figure it out. That's the fun. I think that's it then. I don't know what else. I'm trying to think of anything else to say. Just rounding it out of just.
Well, what's your conclusion?
My conclusion is that no matter what you're doing, you're always going to feel more confident and feel more comfortable doing anything over time, right? And when you feel more comfortable, things become more fun too. It's like instead of being scared, you're like, oh, this is kind of new and different. Like, let's figure this out, you know? And so just putting yourself out there, trying new things, knowing it's going to be uncomfortable, but it will become more comfortable as you like learn the ways. And that's really it.
I think that's what I was going to say. It's just like knowing that, yes, you will feel uncomfortable. There's no avoiding that, right? And so it's like you said, like keeping your wits about you, like being aware of your surroundings, being smart, not, you know, like we were just in the park in Lima, and it's like, hey, my friend, like, where are you from? Oh, New York or you know, Florida. Oh, I've been to New York before. Oh, awesome. Like, I'm like, I know what's coming. Like, I've traveled enough. I know what's coming. And he's like, so, like, you want me to hook you up with the good stuff? Like cocaine, mushroom, weed? I got the best stuff. I'm like, nah, man, we're good. Like, you know, but a lot of the times you don't hear the back end of the story. It's like people being like, yeah, like, what an experience. Let's go.
Yeah.
And like
that's where you'll find yourself in trouble, like those kinds of situations, right? Like Aaron's like, yeah, if I say yes, I want some cocaine, and then I follow you down a dark alley and then you give it to me, like that's where we're gonna run into problems.
I had asked him, hey man, you've asked me like twice and I've said no both times, and I don't think you realize you've asked me twice, and so let me just ask you, like, if I said yes, what happens? Like, he's like, oh, we go back to my place. Right around the corner, like around here, and then like I call my friend, and then he comes, and I'm like, yeah, okay, like who really signs up for that?
Crazy people, and that's how they end up getting themselves into trouble.
Yeah, totally.
Fucking don't do dumb shit.
I mean,
man.
even the guy here in Cusco, he was like painting, and he was like showing his painting, and then he was like,
some mushrooms?
Mushroom, good stuff, maybe later.
We're like, no.
Like, we're selling a painting, and now you're selling mushrooms. And
that's
like,
their undercover.
I know.
That's their shell company.
Yeah.
Like they're artists / drug dealers, you
Yeah.
know? So just say no to drugs, kids, and you'll be fine. Except when you're in Cusco, say yes to coca leaves, which is amazing. And it's legal, so you're fine.
Well, unless you you're in between contracts. Then it's something you have to be concerned about.
Oh, yeah. Like if
Popping
you're...
posy on your drug test.
Yeah, that is one thing that, oh yeah, we need to talk about that in the briefing too, because it is cocaine. So it's derived from, like, coca leaves, cocaine's derived from coca leaf. So if you obviously were drinking the tea and chewing it, so it's not coke.
No, you need like a kilo of like coca leaves to make like an ounce of cocaine.
Yeah, it's like it's not actually cocaine, but it just comes from that. So it gives you the energy and it helps with altitude and like the fuzziness of the headaches and all that kind of stuff. But if you're doing that and you have to like go back to the U.S. and take you have to take a drug test for a contract right away, you can like pop positive. But last time they said it was 2 weeks, and she took a drug test and it was clear. So.
Well, yeah, in 2 weeks.
Yeah.
So we were debating: is it 2 weeks or is it 3 days?
Oh yeah.
And so that's what we were trying to figure out. And so there's no definitive answer on, because it's trace amounts, right? And it's just enough to pop positive.
Yeah.
And so it's one of those things of how long does it come out?
Right.
Like, how long is it in your system?
Right.
So that's how we're ending this podcast.
Yeah, we'll leave it there, kids. Say no to drugs, but yes to coca. Only when in Peru.
So yeah, this next week, like we said, our group comes in. We'll be on the trail. We'll be doing all the Cusco things, leading the second annual Travsessed Peru adventure trip.
Yeah. Next ep we'll be coming back from that. So, right? Yeah.
We don't have to debrief the trip.
We'll have stories to tell, I'm sure.
If there's stories to tell, we'll tell stories.
Yes. We'll tell stories about everyone.
By name.
Yeah. With intimate details.
It's another benefit of coming on the Travsessed trip. Just know your name will be on the podcast.
You'll get a shout out. Yeah. And we don't hold anything back.
No.
We're always looking for content.
Yeah, especially hookups.
Ooh.
Yeah.
I hope there's some.
Oh my God. Anyway.
All right, guys. Well, stay safe out there. We'll see you again.
Okay. It's always, dude, if you don't listen to our podcast, just fast forward to the end to listen to how you sign off. Buddy, do you feel insecure right now?
I'm coked up.